My name is Sam Barker. I'm a music producer, DJ and sound artist based in Berlin. We're here in my studio and I'm here with Adam Audio today. We're going to look at some of the tools that are used on my latest album, Stochastic Drift. I grew up learning instruments more as a fun thing and as a hobby, and then playing instruments in bands with friends. The music production and the electronic music came out of a desire to be able to record myself and my friends' bands, basically. So I started out with a 4-track tape recorder, learned how to use microphones and set up a drum kit, and then eventually realizing that with a drum machine or a synth you can start to do everything yourself. So it was this idea of an independent process that you could make the whole piece of music yourself without relying on other people. I studied in Brighton. I did a digital music course there, and after this course finished, I was ready to get out of the UK and had some friends in Berlin. Also was working as a booking agent for Little Big Agency, and we all together moved to Berlin in 2007. I was putting some records out with Andy Baumecker as Barker and Baumecker on Osgood, but solo releases started a bit later. I somehow had a long period of time where I couldn't decide what was finished or what I wanted to contribute as a solo artist. Around 2016, there was a new label manager, Alex, at Osgood. We're releasing the Barker and Baumecker material, and he asked me if I had any solo stuff to listen to, and so I sent him a bunch of folders, and Alex picked out these tracks that were sort of prototypes in my mind, but he was convinced that this is finished and done, and this was the debiasing EP. That was sort of the first solo record I did on Osgoodton, and it kind of started off the solo part of my journey so far. I've had a few different spaces in Berlin. I was sharing a studio with Andy Baumecker down at Berghain, and also Nick Hubner, and this was kind of wall-to-wall hardware and racks, and this was kind of a 2-player studio situation. Here at home it keeps growing, but this is more of a solo space. This studio is kind of built to be a little bit adaptable to circumstances and to be able to kind of change things around. I also end up quite often getting a new piece of gear and then working obsessively with just that for months at a time. So yeah, I try to keep a bit of space for bringing new toys and new inspiration in. The general setup is that I have an instrument patch bay down here that takes the signals into a mixing desk. The mixing desk has direct outputs on the mono channels that go into the RME 1610. I also have the 6 group outputs, and that's basically the recording part of it. The Fireface, the UFX, is the main interface. I really like this interface because it has direct to USB recording, so I can just hit a button and it will record all of the channels on the desk and the group inputs without having the computer switched on. Quite often I'll be doing something at the modular and it'll turn into something interesting, and then going to Logic, opening up a project, and this kind of takes you out of the flow. So I wanted a setup so I can just hit a button and everything is captured. The finalizer is sitting on a digital output from the RME, so when I do that I also get a kind of a limited version alongside all the rest of the tracks. The outboard stuff is on the TT patch bay beneath. And there I can just build up processing chains on the buses and on the master. There's the Circlon sequencer, which connects all of the hardware, synthesizers, and also the modular. Down here I have some effects. This is the effects section, which are on the auxiliaries here, and I can repatch different effects chains. The UFX connects to the monitoring here. I've just upgraded to the A8H for my main monitors. For the last 15 years I had the A7X, which I loved dearly, and they've now been relegated to the rear speakers here. I'm super happy with the A8H. I wanted to have a bit more bass extension, and these go down to, I think, 31 Hertz. And yeah, the main difference otherwise is that there's these are three-way, and there's a lot more clarity in the mid-range because of that, which I really wasn't expecting, but I'm very happy with them. My favorite thing in the studio at the moment is this ensemble of string instruments. It would be a toss-up between the string instruments and the mechanical drum kit. Both of these are custom instruments made by Kay Sievers, Versio Duo. The cellos, they're called Viola 1 because they have one string, and there's circular bow that sits over the whole unit and rotates and vibrates the string. The bow can tilt so you can apply more or less pressure, and the pitch is changed by this finger mechanism here, which gives a range of about 21 semitones, and altogether there's 8 of these. It's almost like coming full circle from playing sort of real instruments when I was young, learning production, sequencing and all the rest of it, and then yeah, coming back around to combining the two and having these incredible machines to play with. I wrote the album in this studio and also mixed it in the studio. The opening track, Force of Habit, was an attempt to try and break out of some of the habits, I guess, of programming, particularly with sort of rhythmic programming. There's, I find, a really strong bias towards certain established positions for elements. So the idea for that was to try and find a rhythm or rhythms that were, say, the least obvious choice for things. So there's nothing happening on the one of that track, for example, and yeah, I just wanted to try and see if something could be effective without having any formula for the patterns. The percussion was a combination of modular and the Nord drum, and I think I also had some syntact happening on that as well. A lot of the polyphonic stuff, the chords and pads, was done with a Nord Wave 2. It's one of my favorite synths. When I know what I want, then it's super quick and easy to dial up the sound and get it just how you're imagining it. I think for sessions where I don't know what I want, the modular is my go-to, because you always find some surprising sounds, and this is usually how a track will start, with some kind of serendipitous idea emerging from noodling around on the modular. The bass was just to anchor the track at some point, because with this rhythm that is sort of unconventional and not really too easy to sort of nod your head to. I needed the track to just land, to sit on some kind of foundations at some point. The Remembering Self also started out as a modular patch, and the sequencing was a combination of monophonic lines. So I think there was 3 very slow moving arpeggios with different lengths. I like this sort of when you have a few polyrhythms and then you end up with these quite long phrases that resolve only every minute or something. It's more about what the modular is saying back and having this sort of dialogue. I think the sound was pushing the sequencing in that direction from the start. It had this melancholy, kind of wistful atmosphere to it. So yeah, I tend to just let the music, sounds funny, but let the music write itself. Once you have a sound, then it's almost obvious what the sound wants to be doing in a way. The main chord pattern is as it came out of the modular. If I remember right, the herb verb was on full wet. This is a really nice reverb for making things sound like they're in a space, or that the sound is coming from some acoustic source. The title track, Stochastic Drift, was the last track that was written for the album, and this was intended as an embrace of randomness, and this was also my sense of personal development over the past 6 years, that I'd struggled at various points to deal with the unpredictability of this time period and let life unfold as it was intending to, and chaos happens, and all you can do sometimes is just embrace it. It started with quite a rhythmically random patch in the modular, and then these rhythms that it was generating were being converted into MIDI and then used to control this mechanical drum kit. So not every element was from the modular, but the accents and the cymbals and the snare drums that kind of pop out throughout the track were being sequenced from the modular patch, and then some other elements were added to give it a bit of a groove and a shuffle, but the main features of the drum track were sequenced with the same patch as the dubby modular chords that you can hear. That's it from me. Thanks for watching the video. Thanks to Adam for coming down to my studio. There's more information about all these projects on my website, which is voltec-labs.net. Hope to see you around at a show somewhere.